for us to do that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone to the July 20th, 2022 meeting of the Human Relations Board for the City of Battle Creek. I'm Kathy Zender Wilson, the chair of this board, and also Ward 4 City Commissioner. We are going to start today with roll call, and then we're going to take a little diversion from our agenda just to do some introductions because we have a new member that we'd like everybody to get to know. So Alicia, if you'd like to do roll, I know we're short, but at least we'll get it done for right now.
Certainly. Dina Spencer, absent. Whitney Wardell.
Whitney is here, virtual from Battle Creek.
Thank you. Pastor Hooper.
Pastor here, Battle Creek.
Commissioner Zenda Wilson.
Present, participating remotely from Battle Creek.
Commissioner Benika Herring, absent.
Yeah.
Chris Lucier, absent.
Yes.
Miss Austin.
First, let's go here.
I'm here remotely from Grand Rapids.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cotton, absent. Jennifer Greger, absent. Derek Freeman,
Yeah, he
absent.
shared he wouldn't be here.
Keona Ackley, absent as well. Aubrey Kitt,
Present remotely from Battle Creek.
thank you. Pam Lastly, I believe that she pulled her back out, so she won't be here. And Mr. Donald Woodward,
attending remotely from Battle Creek.
thank you, sir. You're all set.
All right, thank you. All right, by way of introductions, I would just like us to take a minute to share who we are very briefly. And so we get a sense of our newest member as well as who's here, because we haven't really done this in a while. So as I shared before, I'm Kathy Zender Wilson. Besides being chair of this board, I'm also Ward 4 City Commissioner. And during the day, I'm co-executive director of an organization called Pulse at the Upjohn Institute. And so I am a married mother of 2 adults who are trying to fly on their own, but I have one that has boomeranged back just temporarily. And so that's what's going on in my life right now. I'm going to have to hand it off to Pastor Hooper.
Good evening, everyone. Pastor Joe Hooper, pastor Faith Temple Church. Had recently been a member of the Neighborhood Planning Council. Looking forward to getting started back up once again. Yeah, I've been on the board for quite a while. I think ever since they restarted up. And so we've been working in the community and looking forward to the work that we've been doing. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, Amira.
Oh, my mic was on the whole time. Hi, my name's Amira. I am a Battle Creek native, living in Grand Rapids for the past 7 or so months. Made a little bit of a move. During the day, I am a reporter at News Channel 3 in Kalamazoo. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a Libra. I like the beach and dogs. So there we go.
Thank you for that little bit of brevity. Whitney.
Hi, my name is Whitney Wardell. By day, I'm the Director of Housing Initiatives with Neighborhoods Incorporated in Calhoun County Housing Services. I'm not a Battle Creek native, originally from Chicago. I've been in Battle Creek for several years, and I just enjoy doing community work and always looking for a new project to make our community better.
Thanks, Whitney. How about you, Aubrey?
Hello, I'm Aubrey. I'm a Battle Creek native. I think I've been on the board for almost a year now. I can't remember when you guys brought in a bunch of new people, but relatively recent. I am a HR specialist for the federal government and have a almost 1-year-old baby, so busy.
Wow, that happened quick. So I
Yeah.
think you were it's been more than a year then because you were pregnant.
Yeah,
when-
that's true.
Yep. Good way for us to remember. All right, thank you. Dina. Hi, we're just introducing ourselves briefly.
Hello, I'm Dina Spencer. I'm here representing Battle Creek Pride. I'm one of the co-presidents, and I apologize for the lateness. I always join these from work, and I always get caught by somebody as I'm trying to get here. So even though it's 10 steps from my desk, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want anything else, or is that it?
That's
Are
fine.
you
Dina.
attending remotely from Battle Creek, Dina?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you.
Alicia. And Dina is going to be a grandmother. So congratulations,
Yes,
right?
I
Did I
am.
see that? Yes.
It's allowed to be public information. My daughter finally gave me permission, so I'm
Well,
excited.
congrats. Yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Kiona. Kiona may not be able to interact, so we're gonna wait. Oh, there you go. Hi.
I want to apologize in advance for the background noise. I'm in a public setting right now. But I'm Kiona Ackley, joining remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan. I am a small business owner, local small business owner, P&K Deals, also the co-founder of nonprofit Serial City Family Network, and work for the Kellogg Foundation, and just love applying myself when it comes to helping make Battle Creek a better place to live, work, and just do what I can to help those in need.
Thank you, Kiona. And we've got Jeff coming in right now. But Paushan, while he is coming in, why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name's Paushan. My birth name, if you like, is Don Woodward. I am a lay ordained Zen Buddhist monk. I live here. I'm a full-time resident of the Sokokochi Buddhist Monastery here in Battle Creek. If you don't know where that is, we are tucked behind where the old Maya Toy World store is in Northwest. I moved to Battle Creek in 2020. I'm a self-employed visual artist. Prior to doing that, I have professional education backgrounds in education. I've been a high school teacher for 17 years, both in public and private school settings. And then I've also been in hospitality and restaurant management positions for about 18 years, both in the corporate world and private settings. My community involvement in the past has included being the musical director of various theatre companies. I've been the conductor of a bunch of bands and orchestras and choirs, event organizing for youth, in particular live music events, both regionally and statewide. And I hold dual citizenship. So I'm British by birth, but I recently became a US citizen in May of 2020.
Congratulations. And welcome, Paushan. We're glad to have you here. Chris and Jeff, thank you for joining. I'm going to have Alicia take roll for you and then have you each introduce yourselves. And Chris, if you want to go first and Jeff second.
Chris Lucier. Chris, are you joining us remotely from Battle Creek? I see your office.
Yeah, I think he's having trouble getting unmuted, but
That's fine, Chris. I've got you down for a roll. And Jeffrey Cotton,
Yes, I'm joining from Battle Creek.
thank you. We're all set.
Thank you. Jeff, did you want to introduce yourself?
You can introduce myself. You broke
Yes,
up real
please.
bad.
Thank you.
You broke up.
Yeah, I'm
You
just
said-
asking you to introduce yourself. We have a new member.
You say name and number. My name is Jeffrey Cotton. I'm the founder of Big Homies Inc. I also work for On the Ground Battle Creek.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And then Chris, are you able to unmute yet?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have volume for a minute. Chris Lucier, remote from Battle Creek.
And can you want to just tell, we have a new member, so we're just giving him an idea of who we are. So if you just want to say something about yourself.
Oh, I'm the community development manager for the city of Battle Creek. And a member of the Human Relations Board. Live downtown Battle Creek. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chris. All right. That was great. Okay, so we still do not have a quorum. Is that correct, Alicia? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we do. Right? Am I counting right? All right, so if, for those who've had a chance to review the minutes from June, if I could get a motion for approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes. Chris Lucier.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, Kiona, second.
All right, we've got it approved. We've got a motion and support. All in favor, put a thumbs up or place it in your reaction.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, the minutes have been approved. Thank you very much. Do we have any communications or committee reports? I haven't been alerted of any.
Alicia? No, I do not believe there are any.
Okay. And for our old business, I'm gonna actually, Rebecca, do you think what you and I talked about earlier is old business, that's new business, correct? So we'll wait for that?
Yep.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
You're going digital sometimes, so you kind of come in and out, and I do understand if everybody can't hear her section of the city is without power right now, so it's a pretty large power outage. So we're gonna have to bear with you, but like you go digital, but then we hear you.
Okay, all right, well, I'll keep going, and Rebecca,
hear
if
you,
you
yep.
can just help me out. Okay, good. All right, what I was asking is, what we discussed earlier, would you consider that new business and I should get into the old business first?
If you're referring to an update on the DEI officer, that can be old business.
Why don't we start there then? So I'm gonna actually turn it over to Rebecca, who's she has for us a new development, but under old business because it's about an inclusion officer for the city of Battle Creek. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thanks. I know we've learned to bear with all of these connectivity issues and the mute and unmute. So thank you, Commissioner Zender Wilson. I appreciate it. I'll be quick. It's an exciting update. We posted the diversity, equity, inclusion officer role last week, and we're overwhelmed by the response. And knowing the talent market today, we actually started interviewing this week because we're finding if we don't move quicker than we have in the past, which is very difficult for government, we miss out on candidates. So we actually held 3 interviews for potential candidates, and we've been blown away by the backgrounds, PhDs, medical doctors, master's degree. It's just been a really good process. And we have 2 candidates that are very, very strong. And so we want to move them to the next phase of the interview process. And let me just say, the interview team consisted of myself, our HR director, Michelle Hull, and then community partners, Ted Deering from the city manager's office, and then L.E. Johnson from the Urban League and Jose Orozco from VOSIS. So that was our team. And the next phase is to actually bring the candidates, the top 2 candidates, into the city. And our group talked about what that would look like. Certainly, we have done that in the past as the city, but we're trying to think outside of the box. And the recommendation is that we do a community discussion with the top 2 candidates at the Burma Center. And each would give a 10-minute presentation and allow for meet and greet with the community. So the community would be commissioners and elected officials from the city staff, and our community partners, as well as we hope members from the HRB. They asked if I would just talk about this at the HRB today and see if you have any thoughts, questions, or comments about our next steps. Really excited about bringing these 2 candidates to Battle Creek. But wanted to make sure that I kept the Human Relations Board informed.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I want to just give you and the group a lot of, just lift up the fact that you don't have to go through that process of bringing this to community. And I actually think it says a lot about your commitment to what this role is going to be about. So thank you. So does anybody have any thoughts or feedback for Rebecca?
I'm sorry, I missed it. You said it was 2 candidates.
Yes. Yeah, we did 3 interviews this week, Jeff, and we have 2 top candidates.
And who are they? They're not from Battle Creek?
I cannot release their names right now because we're still in the interview portion of this. We do have, one is local and one is not, but both from the state of Michigan. They're within Michigan.
And this is for the equity and inclusion position?
This is for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer position with the city. That was a recommendation out of MGT's equity audit. And so, yes, that was posted last week. Yes, you are correct.
Okay. If I had a statement to make about that, I would just say that I think that position should be filled by somebody from Battle Creek.
I think we lost a little bit of what you were trying to say, Jeff.
Oh, I was just saying, I would think that position should be filled by somebody from Battle Creek.
So thanks for that feedback. And I'm curious, how does the board feel about participating in a community event where we could come and there'd be a presentation by each of the candidates? Can you tell us, Rebecca, about what influence or input folks that participate in that would actually have then?
Well, we do plan on eliciting all the feedback we can get. The presentation right now, as proposed, would be they would have a copy of the equity audit done by the city and the DEI action plan that came out of that study. And we would be probably asking them to talk about what does that look like as you implement it at the city of Battle Creek, something like that. Again, I don't want to necessarily say it's completely set in stone, but that's kind of what we're envisioning.
Okay.
And then there would be Q&A, there'd be informal discussion. And then, people can give their feedback verbally or, and on paper, or we'll probably have one on a QR code as well.
And do you have a timeline for this?
No, in August. We
Okay.
hope in middle August.
Pastor, did you unmute to say something?
Yes, I just like to say that I'm excited about that opportunity. As you know, I've been really thinking about it a lot and hoping that we would take action on it, because that would help us in a lot of directions as far as equity and inclusion in the city. And so I'd be willing to participate and share in the meeting presentation that they make. I think it'll be good for the community also. Thank you. Great job, I'd say.
Thank you, Pastor Hooper.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Amira.
I just had a quick question. So with the top two candidates, is the application now closed or are other people still able to apply?
Nope, the application is really, I think it's open until filled. But again, we've got two really good candidates, but that's why we're kind of giving it some time to get to that place, because we're continually scanning applications. So we looked through applications as of today, and I think it was at noon or 1 o'clock, and there weren't any applicants that had the experience and background of our top two candidates.
All right. So I know some of us take a little bit longer to process and think through things. If you have questions or thoughts about this in the coming days or weeks, feel free to email myself or Rebecca. I think any input is welcome input. And I really appreciate the inclusion of Human Relations Board in this process. I think that as many of us can be there, that would be awesome. Just letting them know that we have a strong board and let them know that this is a strong board, and whoever it ends up being, that we really hope to be partners with whoever that is. Dina, yes.
I have two really quick questions. Sorry, someone came in and asked me questions, but may have missed this. Did we have a date that this is happening? Did you say that or no?
We don't. We're shooting for
Okay.
mid-August.
Okay. And then my other question, and I may have missed this as well, I'm sorry. Are we invited the community members, like just regular folks, to come and ask the questions if that's what they want to do? Or are you just focusing on business partners and the Human Relations Board and city officials and that sort of thing?
No, we envision an open invitation. I was just naming some of the groups, but there's nothing magic to that. We plan to have an open invitation.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Thank you, Dina. And that actually leads to another agenda item of ours that I think actually segues really well. And Rebecca, this might be for you as well, to provide us an update. Last month or a couple months ago, we had Jose here to speak and his team to speak about language access services for some of our meetings. And I know that there's been some progress made on that. I would like to also think about how we do that for an event like what you're thinking about in August. So that if we're opening it up for folks, how are we making sure that that's accessible to people who do not speak English?
That's one of the wonderful things about having Jose on your interview team.
He always
So-
asks. Yeah.
Yep. So exactly. We're making sure that that will be live translated in both Spanish and Burmese, as well as having an ASL interpreter there as well. So we anticipate having those areas covered. And just as a follow-up, you know, Jose is very willing to do the live translation for the Human Relations Board meeting as kind of a pilot of our first public meeting going to live translation. And he was very kind in sharing that information. So, you know, I guess it's talking with this group about, do we want to do that in August or September? And then the city would work to coordinate that with VOSIS and certainly with Commissioner Zenda Wilson and with Ms. Ackley as co-chair.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anything that would be required of us to know or learn or understand before we would do something like that? So I'm thinking if there's a need for us to give ourselves a month to prepare for what it would be like, or is it simply they would just participate and translate?
It's my understanding that they would participate and translate. We do want, you know, we want to give them as much notice because, as you can imagine, the demand for translation services is very high. So we have to make sure that they actually have a translator available. And then I believe Jose would say things like, someone like me who sometimes can talk really fast, good reminders are for us to slow down our speech to give them time to translate, things of that nature. But I believe he indicated he can do, you know, they can do a little bit of a briefing before the meeting starts or right at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
You know, we just had with TRHT, we did a home buyer education session that was in Spanish for Hispanic Latino families. And so VOSIS did that translation with the earpieces, but for the English speakers in the room. So the whole thing was in Spanish. And so it was just fascinating. It was really awesome. Like, first of all, you very quickly realize that these translators are incredibly skilled because they're doing it real time. They're transporting is happening. And she was just sitting in the back of the room translating for us English speakers. It was not distracting at all. And then if you're an English speaker, like immediately you could begin, you just understood what was happening in the room. Everything was comprehensible. You felt like you were right in the moment with everyone. My battery went out a couple times. And so as soon as it went out, I would feel like I was completely lost and wasn't a part of things. Then when it came back on, it was like suddenly I was like back in it. You know, it was a very interesting thing. And I was super impressed and thought, wow, this is a totally great way to experience a meeting, like if it's not in a language that your first language. So it was a neat experience for me because often we're talking about making English meetings that are in English accessible to others. And so it was really cool to get a sense for how that might work for other folks. And I felt really confident in VOSIS's ability after going through that. I was like, wow, this is going to be great.
That's great, Chris. Thank you for sharing your experience. So I believe that we're not looking for approval of going forward with this because based on our conversation with VOSIS when they were here, this was a recommendation we made. So right now it's just about taking action on that. And so Rebecca, I think what I would suggest is that you see which of our next couple meetings works for their schedule. If they're available in August, I say let's get started sooner than later. If they need a month and it isn't going to be till September, that's okay as well. But does that work for you?
Yep, that works great.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts or comments? Okay, pretty exciting. Oh, Jeff?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to pull back my statement a little bit when I was listening to Rebecca speak, and the experience definitely means a lot. It definitely makes a lot of difference. So if somebody from a different city is extremely experienced in equity and inclusion and things like that, I wouldn't say they was a bad candidate. So I'll pull that statement back about 50%.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, now I'm going to actually share my screen if I'm able. Yep, nope, I need permission to do that from our meeting host.
You should have it now, Kathy.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you. All right, yep, I've got it. Okay, let me pull up my slides here. I'm not going to go into presentation mode just because it will be a little weird given what I'm at. And I only have a couple slides I want to share. I really want to give all of us like a pause and a reminder of where we've come with our Citizens Review Board discussion, because I really want to move us to action rather quickly. And so I know that for Paushan, this is all new, so I really want to go as in depth as possible. And I also think that because we all have very busy lives, it's easy to lose all of these details in the time between our meetings, right? To hold it all and carry it all is a bit of a challenge. So I want to acknowledge that. So we have received, reviewed, and responded to the NAACP's CRB proposal. That has already happened. We received it. We've provided feedback. We've had some negotiation conversations. We've also reviewed the MGT equity audit. And so now we know what their recommendations are, which included a CRB being actually developed and implemented. That led to a further commitment of the CRB concept, as though I think we were already there, but we got validation even further from the audit reports that came out. There was a suggestion that more community input was needed. I want us to actually talk about what that is, why it is, and what it would look like. And do we need to develop a survey? So that's going to be where we are right now, right? What I'd like to recommend as our next steps is that we need to conduct, if we're going to conduct the survey and analyze the data, I want to set a timeline to that. Because what I'd like to see us do is set a date for when we want to make recommendations to the City Commission based on the analysis and our recommendations. Now, I want to set some tone here. First of all, our HRB, the Human Relations Board, is put together to be representative of the community. I don't want us to diminish or minimize the input we've had on the CRB process. I think it's critical and important, and I think many of us are out in the community and we listen to others as well. So I want to lift up that that is valid and it is part of our process as well. If we think that we still need to go out and actually canvass folks, ask people or survey people, we need to get really concrete about what our objectives are around that data collection and what specifically we would be asking. And so I'm going to pause there and just ask for reactions or reflections on what I just shared. And you can just unmute yourself if you have thoughts.
Paushan, what sort of education has occurred in terms of making the public aware of the function of a citizen review board?
Yeah, that's I think that beyond what the NAACP and their advisory group, I'm not sure what their formal title was of the group that came together. They had some community conversations with several community organizations. There has not been any formal education within the community that I know of, or anything that has been specific to helping people understand what a Citizens Review Board is, other than folks who've engaged through that process. Rebecca, do you know of any other efforts?
I don't.
Anyone else know any? Okay. Yeah, so that would be part of our charge, right? Is that as this is off the ground, we need to be thinking, we let people know what this is, why it's important, and what it might look like. All right.
I'll chime in really
Thoughts
quick.
on, yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the survey would be a good idea just for that education piece, because I think you can provide a little bit of a definition, break down the different types, just really briefly before people take that survey so that they know what it is. And I think there could just be a little bit more publicity around it. I don't think a lot of people are aware that some of these conversations are happening. So I think that would be a good idea, just to do the survey so that people are educated on what it is and to decide if, they think that's something the city of Battle Creek needs. I know we all represent a pocket of the community, but I think just some broader outreach would be beneficial.
Thank you, Amira. So I assumed that was going to be the case, and I put together some parameters for us to be looking at. And just, I want to lift up the summary of strategic priorities identified through the equity audit. They said that there is, a need to build trust through effective listening, communication, and transparency, strengthen multicultural awareness, competency, and lens in which members of the police department operate, and strengthen, that should be strengthen, not strength, the police department policies, HR systems, and processes. So the action that we need to take then is, how do we elevate our input and recommendations as representatives of the community and get really concrete about what a survey will tell us and what we would do with the information? And I hear Amira say that there are two objectives. One is to let folks know what a CRB is, right? So it would get us an audience, I suppose, if no other way to put it, letting folks know that a citizens review board is this, and we want your feedback because it will help us determine our approach moving forward. And so are there any other objectives we want to include in this that you could think of that we might be missing?
I just want to piggyback on what Amara said. I don't even, like she said, people don't even know that we're talking about this for the most part, other than the handful of people either within this group or the, small little handfuls of people that we've talked to, or the people that were invited to the initial conversation with Mr. Whitfield and his team. And so I think that is something too, because the broader community as a whole has no idea this was even being discussed. So I would say, educate them. We're learning as we're going through this, what this looks like as well, which means that they need it also. And then gather that feedback. So to me, those would be the two objectives, is to inform and then gather what people want out of it. And then we can decide what our role is with that. I'm really trying to remember that this isn't, quote, our project per se, that we are the supporting piece rather than the piece putting it together. And so at the end of the day, all we can do is make recommendations, and they are going to do, I guess what they feel is best. But we can at least offer what we can offer and do our best to persuade and, just share that feedback with them and hope that they take that information and
Yeah.
if there's criticism, take that constructive criticism, I guess, or that feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Dina. I think you make a really valid point that I didn't lift up, and it's critical, right? Is that what our role is in all of this? And we were approached as the liaison between the community and the city so that we could actually be almost the sponsors of this to the commission. What would it look like if we were able to present a proposal to the commission for their reaction and their response? And so I don't know, Rebecca can correct me if sponsor is the wrong word, or if that's a little loaded, but I do think that there was an intention for us to play a role in looking at it so that we could see from the community's perspective, is this something that is organized in a way that we think could be successful? All right. So from process questions, so my day job is asking people questions all day long. So I do this for a living, and it's always very technical, and it's a lot more difficult than people think it is. And so I would like us to we talked about this a little bit last month, like what is our sample size? And I know that we got some feedback from Chris and Rebecca as folks within the city who do surveying often. I want to get a firm number of what we think is a good enough sample size for us to think, if we're going to do this survey, what are we shooting for in numbers? Or is it that we're looking at a certain allotted amount of time, that we're going to keep a survey open for 30 days and what we get is what will actually work for us? And so I want to open that up just for discussion right now.
If I remember correctly, I think Rebecca and Chris said that 1,000 was usually about the amount they get when they do surveys for the city. And considering our population, that sounds like a small amount, but in the grand scheme of things, surveying, it's a good number. So correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca or Chris, was 1,000 that number that you said is usually a good sample size that you typically get?
Well, so 1,000 was how much we get typically with the consolidated plan, but I would say I mean, we're very aggressive. We mail that survey, a paper copy of that survey, to every residence that receives a water bill. And we promoted it aggressively through like listservs and go to events and have people fill it out. I would say a much smaller number is still meaningful. A lot of communities don't put that much time into their consolidated plan. You know, that's a plan that spends about $1.5 million. So it likes to have some input before it makes a decision each year. And I would say most communities make do with maybe getting 100 responses or 150 responses. It's not like a scientific survey that's helping you like a poll, a political poll. It's much more about gathering some input from some citizens to ensure that you've got some input from community members. So it's a little different. The city survey is a whole nother deal as well, and Rebecca could speak to that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Thank you, Chris. And Rebecca, I know that we are in the throes right now of a city survey. Can you give us a sense of timeline of that, what information you're gathering around that, and whether or not that's going to impact our ability to be successful in asking people to complete yet another survey?
Well, I wish I had that crystal ball. We are right in the end of our national community survey. We do it every 3 years. And that's more of a global survey on our on our city services with some specific questions if we have a specific need. But we have seen very low survey responses, and that's why we kept it open online. It's actually still open, I think, till July 25th, because we're just hearing that people have survey fatigue. And during the pandemic, that's what all of us did. We went back to virtual and survey options to try to gather input and et cetera. And so we are struggling with that. And we heard that too, also when we did the equity audit, you know, the numbers that were part of the focus groups and the employees that were involved. It can be really, you know, it can be difficult to engage. And for example, employees from the city, it wasn't mandatory. So, you know, you could come and be part of that if you wish. And then we know everybody's schedule is incredibly busy. So even if we held like 3 different locations in the city, we're still only seeing, you know, maybe a dozen people. So I think like right now, they're sending me the information. We have about 300-ish, you know, so Chris is right, you know, even with the aggressive campaigns. And recently we sent postcards to every mailer in the city. And so we have seen a bit of an uptick. And so, you know, that's what we are experiencing. I would love to get to 1,000. And we in previous years, and I think even our first year, you know, we did better around 800. But that's what we've been experiencing, particularly since the pandemic.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or feedback?
Oh, let me clarify that. 300 mailed in, 290 online. So we are up to 590. I mean, that's pretty good. And the 290 have just come in, you know, since we've done this push and the postcard. So we're doing what we can, like Chris said, you know, trying to be as aggressive as we can be and encourage people to fill them out.
That's a significant mailing though, right? That you did with the postcard?
It was.
I mean, you're spending like $1,000 or so, a couple $1,000 to mail to all those?
Yes, sir. Slightly more than that, but yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, I know we did some grassroots stuff. I think TRH, like with Juneteenth, I know folks went to some community events and were collecting information through some brief surveys that happened there. I mean, that may be an example of a way to collect, you know, to try and gather some information, but that takes volunteers who want to do that. So I don't know what folks envisioned in terms of the time commitment or the effort that would be put into it by board members. So.
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris, because what I was going to propose us consider is putting together a survey monkey, making sure we have paper copies available for those that don't have access to the internet, but still want to complete it. But what would it take for us to lean on our community partners? If we had like a targeted approach at saying we wanted to reach certain pockets of the community, who are the community partners that are closest to that, who could actually encourage folks to complete it? And the survey itself being really short and brief so that we can get the information quickly. Jeff, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we all aware that most of the tactics that are used these days and in past days are not effective at reaching certain communities. So if we want to breach those barriers that exist, and those barriers that I'm speaking of, house the people who are most affected by these decisions that we are discussing, like the Citizens Review Board or the policies and procedures of the city and the police department. If we want to breach those barriers, then we got to put in extra effort. Like, we're supposed to show up at every event that happens in the city and raise this question. Like, it doesn't cost any money to do these things. It's only people power that makes these things happen.
So I think that is, organizing an effort like that, Jeff, is going to take some leadership, and who has the capacity on the board right now to organize the volunteers to get out there and do that. I think that we could come up with the questions.
But I don't think it's one person. No, I don't. 1,000 partners. I don't. It's not who. We all on this phone together. We have the capacity. It's not who has it. We all have the capacity and the power to do it, to spread a word and to enlighten the community. We can all do that. We have the capacity to do it. We just have to strategize and target these locations and target these populations and target these communities and find out when are they having events. Where is the most gathering of these people that we need to reach? Where are they gathering at the most? And we need to put this message there and invite them to this conversation.
And Jeff, do you have ideas of who the folks are that you think we need to be targeting?
Yeah, the most dilapidated communities in this city, where the police rotate the most at, where the resources don't reach. Those areas, and it's one on every side of town. Those areas and those people, it's the majority of our population. They're not responding to postcards in the mail or emails, or they're not tapping into city commission meetings on YouTube and things of that nature. Like, we gotta put it in their face. We can hang door knockers. We can go to events. We can knock on doors. We can go door to door. We can isolate and target specific communities and accomplish, at the very least, knowing that we reached these areas and these populations of people. At the very least, we engaged with.
So let me move on to the questions right now.
I broke up.
Yeah, I think I got everything you said, Jeff. I think we're good. I want to move on to the questions so that, I think we've decided we want more input. I think the process and how we go about it, we still need to really kind of come to some consensus around about what that looks like. But I do think we need to be focused on, like, what are the potential questions that we would ask, whether or not it's in person at events, which makes it really challenging to gather data that way. It's just a lot harder to pen and paper kind of write, and you're not getting exactly what people are saying. There's some of the challenges of that. If what we're doing is trying to get a sense of, do people want this and what would it look like? It's just much easier to be able to get data that can be analyzed and used if it's done electronically or with a paper where people actually complete it themselves. It's just a lot harder, and I welcome any pushback on that from anybody else.
It can be done. It can be done electronically in person. It can be done electronically recording something. It can be done any way. We think this is a serious issue. It should be done every way that we can imagine, every means of communication that we can imagine. It should be done that way.
And so, Joe, I welcome your feedback also on these questions to see if they get at what you're thinking we need to learn from folks about this, right? So, top overall question that based on what I have been reading and hearing and seeing and listening to is, what recommendations do whoever is responding to it, do you have to improve police community relationships? I think there are relations. I think there needs to be a suite of things they respond to, so it's not just open-ended.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's not a concern of a citizens review board to improve citizens and police relationships. That is the police department's concern. The concern of a citizens review board is to hold city officials accountable for the way they interact with citizens. A citizens review board is not designed to make everybody get along. It's designed to hold those in power accountable for their actions and behaviors.
So I welcome other feedback as well. I'm curious, how would you would suggest the overall question be written then? How do we hold Battle Creek Police Department responsible or accountable? Is that what you're getting at, Jeff?
No, I don't think it's just the police department. It's all city officials and the police department. It's the people in power interacting with those that they are designated to allow access to that power, and instead of abusing them with that power. That's the concern of the Citizens Review Board. It's a representation of the people, of the citizens.
And do you feel that's an open-end, and anybody else wants to chime in, I'd like to make this a conversation because I'd really like to get at this. But if there, so are you thinking that this would be an open-ended question, or that there would be things that they would be responding to around that, Jeff?
I don't necessarily think it's questions are the approach. I believe educating the community on what a citizens review board is, what their role is and responsibilities, and then finding the proper candidates to serve. We know we need a citizens review board, right? The biggest hang up, I believe, is the structure of it. The biggest complaint I had with the NAACP submission was that they didn't want to include subpoena power. So all of these different things that we've been debating and discussing, I believe we need to educate these communities and find citizens in these different communities, like real people, to serve on the Citizens Review Board. The same way we do on a diversity, equity, and inclusions officer. Like the same way we, you guys just spoke on how we got 2 good candidates. We need a table full of candidates from our communities all over, representatives from all over, all different ethnicities, all different pockets of people activity. We need a representative from all those areas. We need to comb the city and find the right people to serve on that board. I believe we all agree that we need it. We just need the right kind of board, I guess.
I mean, in terms of like what our role is, I mean, I don't necessarily feel like our role is to engage in a massive organizing effort. I don't know if you're suggesting this. I'm not sure, Jeff, you're saying this is what needs to happen in order for that to be successful, or that is what our role needs to be.
No, I wasn't, I'm sorry, Chris, but yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying our role. I believe it's part of my role for sure. I believe that I would participate in something like that. I'm not saying the whole board needs to, but as a city, I do believe that's our role. I do believe that.
Yeah. Well, so right, as a city, that makes sense to me. Like all of what you're saying makes sense to me there. I'm just wondering in terms of our role in this, it seems like laying out the options makes sense. I agree with Jeff about the way that first question's frame, I don't think quite captures how we want to frame this. And I was quiet because I was I'm trying to figure what's a good way to frame it. And everything I came up with, I had problems with. But so less about it. So I do get a little nervous about framing things as being about improving the relationships there. I do think it is about accountability for creating like a truly safe community. And I think the way we have it now, some people don't feel safe and don't feel like necessarily just improving relations is a way to make things safer. But I think if you just say it's about accountability, creating a safe community, then that leaves out something too. Like that's just really a bland statement, and it doesn't put your finger on it. The fact that we really need to have accountability to some communities that aren't feeling safe. So I don't know how to go about that.
I wonder if this isn't more about how we set it up. But I just want to say that I have very little battery left. If I lose you, it's only because my computer dies. I'm going to hopefully be on for a few more minutes. But this is what I get for always having my laptop plugged in. And I just have it unplugged for the first time. is that in the setup, in order to be more accountable to communities who feel or underserved, there is a proposal that a citizen review board be created, right? Maybe it's not a question, it's a statement.
Yeah.
And that if it encompasses what we're trying to say, we're not looking for feedback about that. We've established that's the reality, right? What we want to know from folks is, what is the structure for that? How are we looking at accountability? Who is it met? What's the composition, right? And I apologize. Let me shut the door. Man, challenges over challenges today, sorry. And so would that satisfy this challenge that we're having right now?
I think asking them what does that need to look like, and presenting them with some options, so it creates the opportunity to educate folks about what are the different kinds of options, right, in the range. And I think, like, while I don't feel like necessarily it's our job to, I don't feel like it's my job necessarily to or role to advocate for a specific thing. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I do feel like if we heard that there was a lot of support for a specific type of citizen review board, then lifting that up, elevating that to people who would be making a decision, that very much seems like our role, and ensuring that those voices get heard. You know, that to me seems like a really appropriate place for us. So
I'll chime in really quickly. I know that as a group, we've kind of discussed, and a consensus is kind of that we do need a citizens review board, but I don't think we can assume that from the community. And so I think that first question could just be, based on this definition, like, I think it's kind of simple. Like, if, I don't know, not that we're thinking about it too hard. It is like a good thought process, but I think the first question is just, do we need, based on this definition that, or the education that we're putting out, do you think we need a citizens review board? Yes or no? And then why or why not? And that can be open-ended. But I did like the last two questions, Kathy, because I also think that gives a chance to educate. So the second one being like, okay, if you chose yes, what would be most important? So you could say investigation, and if they investigate it, here's what they would do. Review, here's what they would do. If they monitor and audit, here's what they would do. So of that list, which one would you, or check all that apply? Maybe you want them to do all of that. And then the last one is, who would you like to see on that citizen review board if you say you think it should be created. So I think, like, we can't assume that the community, we probably have a good idea just as we are in the community, but not assuming that they would want one, and just, asking for the reasoning why. So I think just a yes or no at the beginning based on this definition would be a good way to just break it down and get a clear and concise answer.
I totally disagree with you, niece. We can assume that slaves wanted freedom, right? So we can assume that citizens want protection from abuse of power. We can assume that. I totally believe that we can assume that.
Yeah, I definitely think we've had discussions, and like, we agree that that's something that we need as a human relations board, something like we would see. I think a lot of just society does feel like there needs to be more accountability, but just to break it down and simply just ask people based on this definition, do you think we need one and why? And so I know that we can say, like, the consensus will probably be yes, you know what I mean? But I just think it is necessary to just ask the question. And then that gets into, okay, if yes, then what does that look like to you? Or what would you like to see?
Yes, that's why I think that's going backwards.
You can skip the yes or no question. You can ask it based on this
I don't think it's a question. You can a question asking process. I think it's an educating the people process.
Yeah, and I think an education comes after that. So yes, do we need one? One is being proposed, Carrie's group has put this together. Do you think we need one? And what would that look like to you? I just think it's just inviting the community in. So, obviously it's open to suggestions. It doesn't have to be like that. And like I said, we can't assume that, yes, this is what people need, but we need to hear from them.
So I'm hearing a few things, and we have 5 minutes left in our time today. So I don't know that we're going to come to any confirmed resolution. I do think that what I'd like to ask you is, with your permission, I put something together for your reaction by email, but that we need to hear from folks between now and August. I don't think we can sit on this any longer. We keep having these conversations and we're not moving anything forward. And so if we can, I can work with Rebecca, I can reach out to Chris, I can tap several of you and really kind of get something pulled together that is a confirmed plan, so that when we get out there, I've got some ideas rumbling through my head right now. We can come back with some data from the community that helps us understand how do we position this with authenticity and with some weight to the commission, because ultimately they're going to have to make the decision, right? And so what we're trying to do here is say, as a conduit between the community and the city, we want to present the strongest case possible for what this is going to look like. And I appreciate that everybody said what has been done so far isn't sufficient enough, right? We haven't had enough feedback. People don't understand enough what this is out in the community, and we need to rectify that in some way. Does that sound okay?
It sounds good. It seems like normally this would be something in the past, I would say, even when we needed to dig deep on an issue like this, often it led to subcommittee work, and that you appointed a subcommittee that was going to invest the time in order to ensure that the football moved down the field, as time progressed. So in lieu of that, I think if someone's coming together with a proposal that builds on the conversation we've just had, or the ones we've had previously, and then allows the group to respond to it, I think that'll help move us forward. You mentioned talking to myself or Rebecca, but I would just also add that Amir and Jeff have been very vocal in this discussion,
Yes.
and it might be a bit just as helpful or even more helpful to check in with them real quick, if that's possible, in the intervening time, to ensure that whatever you're going to put forward in front of the group incorporates their input.
Absolutely. Thank you for Chris for putting some structure around that, because I don't want this to be just me going out and actually tapping people individually. I actually think it would be stronger if there was a subcommittee that came together to do that. If you're interested in doing that, please email me directly. You have my email address, and we'll make that happen between now and the August meeting. And it'll be whoever from this group wants to participate. And so please, we'll do it in person if we can. I think that'd be a great use of our time. If it needs to be virtual, it can be, but I think that I got to get out of this virtual world and be able to see people and actually get this stuff done. So, so email me before the end of this week. Today's Wednesday. If you can let me know by Friday, we'll look at the next 2 weeks to try and get us together. So that's I'll stop there. I do want to have a couple minutes. It's 4:58 right now for public comment, which we can't miss out on. So do we have anybody for public comment?
We do not. No one is in the waiting room right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And board comments, if there's anything beyond what's already been shared in our discussion, is there anything that anyone needed to share today?
The only thing I wanted to share briefly is I received feedback from a couple community members regarding the paint program. From what it sounds like is the paint program is no longer available, but it's still showing on the City of Battle Creek's website. And I didn't know if we could have someone look into that. And if that program is discontinued permanently, see about having that removed.
Thank you, Kiona. And Rebecca, if you could get back to the HRB on that, we'll be able to make sure that we let folks know. And then one last thing, I want to give a shout out to Pride for an incredible weekend this past weekend. And I was able to march in the parade on Friday night behind Attorney General Dana Nessel, and had the opportunity to ask her about the investigation of Xavier West. And she said that it's an active investigation. I've actually reached out to Rebecca to see if there's anything that we as a board can do to encourage them to keep us updated on the progress. And I'm not sure if Rebecca heard anything yet, but just know that those conversations are happening, and we want to do what we can. If there's anything, I don't know what weight carries or anything that would be, be helpful, but just know that that happened and it was asked. Jeff, did you just put your hand up now, or was it up before? And then Dina, you have yours.
No,
up.
I put
Dina,
it up. Yeah, I put it up. I just was trying to drop a little note that I was having the second annual back to school event, August 26th, Parkway Manor.
All right.
So we collecting school supplies and stuff to give away to the kids that need it.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for doing that. And then Dina?
I just want to piggyback on what you said. for those that didn't attend due to the weather and whatever reason, at the drag show after the parade down at Wave Park, Xavier West's family was there as well. And Miss Nessel spoke to them personally and walked up to them and had some conversations. So, and she said exactly what you said, that she is looking at it. It is on her radar, and she didn't forget. It's not anything like that. That is being worked on. So I just want to bring that to everybody too. So.
Thank you, Dina. I'm glad she stuck around.
Yep.
All right, what is it is 5:01. I want to thank everybody. Paushan, welcome. Thank you for being here. We look forward to moving forward, and I look forward to hearing from any of you who are interested in the subcommittee so we can move this forward. And we'll see you again in August. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.